So for the main project, what we're going to do for the pine is we're going to use, we'll wipe on stain. So we always stain before we put finish on, because again, since it is a penetrating finish, we want it to get into the wood first so that when we put the top coat over top, it doesn't rub off. So again, I have blown off all of the pine, completely free of dust. I've just sanded it yesterday, so it's fairly new. And what I'm going to do is, I was going to use a t-shirt, but another way you can apply wipe on finish is with a paper towel, and you're just going to gently wipe it with the grain. All right. The other thing you notice is that I did tape off the hardwood because I don't want to change the color of the hardwood, because we're going to use different finishes for those parts. So right now we're only focusing on getting stain on the pine. So with that said, let's get to it. So I'm going to dip my rag into my stain, and I want to squeeze off as much excess as I can so I don't drip all over my project. And now I can start wiping this on. Now this finish stain specifically is called whitewashing. It's really popular right now with a lot of furniture, and all you're doing is you're just staining the wood white. All right? It's not a paint. All right? A paint would hide the grain underneath, whereas the stain is just going into the pores of the wood and bringing out this nice bleached color. All right? And what I want to do is I want to make sure I don't leave any streak marks behind as I'm doing this. All right? And I'm going to whitewash the entire pine parts. So that would be the side pieces and the rear supports. The two steps I want to leave natural so I can use, I'm thinking between Danish oil or just polyurethane. But if I do use Danish oil, I will have to put a top coat over top of it. Because again, I would use Danish oil in this case kind of like a stain just to bring out the color. And then I would use the polyurethane as a sealant to protect it or waterproof it from any moisture or scratch, nicks, or dirt. So that side is done. Now I'm going to be very careful with my wet hands, making sure I don't put it on my solid wood pieces. Because once I've bleached it, it's really hard to get out. So again, if you do mess up with staining, the nice thing is once it's dried, you can go back and sand it back to the natural wood. Because again, it's not going all the way in to the wood grain. It's just gently sitting on the top layer, and you can always sand it back. So my suggestion is, after this, I'm just going to lightly scuff it with 220 just to give it that aged look. But I do recommend you be very careful that you don't take too much wood away, because then you'll lose that look and you'll have to redo your process again. Now another thing I'm going to recommend is that you always look back at the thing you've done and look for any drip marks left behind. It's good to address them before they dry, because once they dry, you have to sand it. So again, always have an open, a vigilant eye for any drip marks. So like right here, I have a big blotch, and I just need to wipe that in to the stain, into the wood itself. All right. Now I'm being a little bit overkill here. I'm covering as much of the pine as I can, so that no matter what, however I hold the step stool, I can always see the whitewashing on the pine. Now for your project, you don't have to do this, right? You could just put a natural polyurethane finish over the entire project and not have to worry about staining. I just wanted to go the extra mile on this because I think it would look nice. But again, it's not a necessary step, but I just wanted to show you the techniques. You might notice is I am wearing gloves. Whenever you're working with stain, you must be wearing gloves. It is a penetrating finish, and it's not really good for the skin. So you need to wear gloves. Now, when it comes to cleanup, with oil stain, with any stain cloth like this, I'm going to have to dry it out before I throw it away. I can't go to the waste bin and just throw this away, because there is that risk we talked about last time of it combusting or catching on fire. So again, until this is completely dried and all the odor is gone, you cannot throw it in a waste bin. It's just good safety practice, and it'll prevent you from having any accidents in your small home shop. Now that everything's coated, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a quick inspection. I'm going to make sure all the streak marks are pulled with the grain, because any marks going across the grain will really show up once they dry. So I'm just going to go back and just gently brush back everything. Going with the grain. Now, I did notice, but I actually touched it in two spots, so I am going to have to show you how to remove that once this is dried. With an oil-based stain, it takes about 24 hours for a full cure, which means that I can apply finish over top of it. You should never rush putting finish onto stain, because if you do, it'll just peel off anyways. So with that said, we're going to start putting finish on the drawer. So let's get to that. So for the step stool drawer, what we're going to do is we're going to finish the entire thing with a spray-on polyurethane. What's nice about it is I can get all in the nooks and the crannies of the step stool without having to worry about brush marks or anything like that. So what I'm going to do, I'll put on my mask, and when I'm spraying, I want to be about 10 inches away. I want to start my stream at the beginning and end over here. So start, finish, start, finish. And I want to lightly coat it, because again, the first coat is the most important. It's the foundation of the entire piece. So again, I want to take my time and just gently coat the entire surface. Then I'll come back in 15 minutes, flip it over, and do the same on the bottom. So let's get to it. So this is 24 hours after I've put spray polyurethane on my drawer and stain on my side. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to gently polish everything again. There are some white marks left over from the staining process I have to clean off. And then we'll do the final finish, which is going to be Danish oil for the natural wood steps, and then a second coat on the drawer itself. So after the first coat, we're going to sand the entire step stool, so the parts that are finished, with 320 grit. The natural one we're going to sand with 220 because, again, we're just prepping it for finish. Once finish is on it, we're going to go up in grits, so 320, 400, 500 as we go. So this, when we're done, the step stool drawer should have 3 coats of spray polyurethane sanded at 500 grit sandpaper. So I'm going to start with the drawer front. And the reason why I'm hand sanding is when you're hand sanding, you can go as fast as you want as opposed to a machine. And the other thing is you also ensure that you won't get any new scratch marks or whorls or nicks from hand sanding. So I'm sanding with the grain now until I take the shine out of the finish. The other way you can test is the most sensitive part of your hand is the back of your hand. And what you want to do is you want to run it across the workpiece and feel for any rough spots. If you can't feel any rough spots, you did a good job and it's ready for the next coat. Whereas if I go to the edge here, I can feel a lot of bumps and high points from the finish. So I need to polish these edges now. So once everything is clean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my air compressor and a clean cloth, so like an old shirt that I've cut up, and I want to wipe away all this white dust so that when I put finish on this, it doesn't stay underneath the coat. So again, when you go to recoat, you must have a completely cleaned project. All right? So let's do that. And then for good measure, we're going to wipe it down with that cloth now. Right. So this is ready for its second coat, and then I'll do the same process again for the third coat, sanding it down instead with 400 grit and then recoating after that. So in total, this entire drawer should have 3 coats. Reason why we do 3 is 3 provides the maximum protection while also not getting in the way of my runners. And now we'll put that aside for 15 minutes, let it dry, and then flip it over and do the same to the other side. So let's move on to the dresser. The step stool. So now I'm going to take 220 and I'm going to wrap it around a piece of wood. The reason why I want to do this is as I'm cleaning off my mistakes, I want to make sure I don't round over those nice straight corners that I have. So now I'm going to blow this off and I'm going to prep it for the Danish oil. Now the other thing I'm going to do real quick is I'm also just going to lightly touch up the stain. A little bit of hand sanding. Because even though it's not a top coat, you should always sand between each coat of stain just to make sure that the coat is even and there's no drip marks left over on your project. And again, I find hand sanding is the most effective because then you don't by accidentally strip too much of the finish off by accident, while also preserving that nice, clean, flat surface that you had worked so hard for. So I'm going to run over that with a tack cloth, this t-shirt real quick. Now we're ready for the Danish oil. I'm going to lightly coat my rag and wipe with the grain. Now I could just finish with Danish oil the entire project because it is a penetrating finish, and after I think it's about 6 coats, it starts to turn into a top coat, so it creates a nice clear surface. But right now I'm using it as a color enhancement so that when I put the water-based finish over top, it creates that nice color. So if you see the oak right now, you can really see it, the grain starting to really shine on it. I'm going to zoom in on this one because this is going to look really nice. I like Danish oil because it brings out that nice, natural, warm color of the wood, like an oil finish, but it dries a lot faster than, say, polyurethane. So that covers the most of the finishing that's going to happen for this project. So I hope everyone has a safe weekend and enjoy your Memorial Day. See you on the flip side. Bye.